For my final project, I researched online math journals in the middle school classroom. One of the main reasons why we would use a math journal in the class is to improve the problem solving skills of our students. Over the last several decades in the United States, the leading educators have really pushed problem solving skills and getting students to solve complex problems. For example, in 1980, the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics released a document that they titled An Agenda for Action. That document made several suggestions for math teachers for the 1980s, including their main idea that the 1980s should be a decade of problem solving. 30 years later, the Common Core State Standards were released. In the standards, the number one standard for math practice for all grades was to make sure students could make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. So the focus of the United States math education seems to have been the same. In theory, the focus was the exact same thing for the last 30 years, and actually longer than 30 years now. You would think that in 30 years, having focused on one thing across the nation, we would have been to the point now where we would be really, really good at teaching problem solving skills. But in an international test in 2012, the United States placed 27 out of 34 tested nations. So what went wrong in that test? Well, the results showed that American students are really, really good at the most simple, basic math tasks. They at least have some understanding of many, many concepts. The problem is when they get to the more complex problems. Those problems that NCTM suggested students should be solving in 1980 and that the Common Core State Standards suggested that they should be solving today, those are the problems that we're still struggling with. Those same problems we've been focusing on or have been supposed to be focusing on for the last 30 years. And if we've been focusing on those, why aren't we improving? Well, a little problem solving theory here. George Polya literally wrote the book on problem solving. He wrote a book titled How to Solve It, and the first edition came out in 1945. In that, he makes many recommendations for how to teach problem solving. And one of his main ideas that he states at the beginning of the book is that learning to solve problems is similar to learning how to swim, in that students need imitation and practice. So they need to see people solve problems, and then they need opportunities to practice. It seems in the United States we're not getting enough of that imitation and that practice, and looking for opportunities to increase those chances that students have should improve our ability to solve problems. So in this study, I attempt to figure out how writing in online math journals affects the problem solving skills of the 7th grade students in my class. And just so you know what I mean when I say math journals. The idea of a math journal is that it's a binder or a spiral notebook that contains student writing that reflects their thinking, problem solving approaches, and their opinions. So basically they're writing about how they would solve problems. Now traditionally this has been done like it says in a binder or a spiral notebook. In my study, I want to look at how Google Docs affects the usefulness of the math journals. Many, many studies have been done that shows that they can be effective, but there's none out there that show that using Google Docs, or specifically using Google Docs, as the way to use and operate the math journals in the classroom. And why I'm using Google Docs, well, there's 5 main reasons. The first is that this journal cannot be lost, so the student can't take it home. It exists on the internet, in the cloud, so the journal will never be lost. Going back and editing becomes more efficient, so students get the reflection practice on their problem solving skills, so if they make a mistake, they can actually go back and fix that mistake. It allows for easier collaboration, both from student to student and from student to teacher. You can use more high quality images because they can be cut and pasted right into the document. And then also we could link video and audio to that, which is something that just couldn't be done on paper. So again, Math journals have been shown to be very, very effective, but the online aspect of it has not. So that's what I wanted to look at in my classroom. Here's some things that people have suggested as ways to improve problem solving. So from the Common Core state standards, they want students to constantly be looking at why a math statement is true or why a rule always works, and actually to understand that. So at some point during the year, and at many points during the year, that's what we really have to focus on. George Paglia recommends that we challenge our students' curiosity, make them wonder why these things work. And then finally, the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics encourages students to look for different ways to solve the same problem. And the different ways to solve it sometimes gives us different perspectives on the math concept. Then I also looked at why Singapore, who scored first on that international study, does so well. In their nation's plan for math problem solving, or math education in general, they list 5 components to problem solving. And as these 5 components improve individually, the idea is that the overall problem solving skills will improve. So we're going to look to try to improve metacognition, attitudes, the processes of the problem solving, and then the concepts and skills involved in math education. So improving metacognition. I looked for some research that suggests that writing could improve metacognition, specifically in the math classroom. And when I say metacognition, I'm meaning that would be the students thinking about their own thoughts in general, is what we mean with metacognition. And what people have found is that writing about the problem, so even before solving, just trying to write about what's going to be involved in the problem, can help overcome the complexity that is sometimes involved in the problems that are given to students. What they also found was that critiquing others, so looking at the examples of the ways that other people have solved problems, improves the student's ability and their reasoning skills, and improves their ability to think about how they would solve the problem. The next component to Singapore's problem-solving framework is improving attitudes. And writing in the math classroom and just discussing math in general has been shown to increase students' enjoyment. Another finding is that real images and real videos can increase the engagement. And again, those real images and videos can be embedded right into the document, which is one of the reasons for the online format. And then also, when students see that the online journal benefits them, they should, or some people have seen, an increased enjoyment of students in the classroom. Improving processes. Writing about the steps can make it easier to explain those later. It makes that stick a little bit better. Also, writing seems to show that students can find new ways to solve the problems. So as they're thinking about them and writing about that, that helps them figure out new ways that they can solve the same problem. And then finally, improving concepts and skills through writing. What Baines found was that thinking about the purpose and why they make certain calculations actually increases later on students' ability to accurately make the calculations. So because they know and they have written about why they need to make that calculation, they're actually more accurate later on. And then also in a second grade classroom, writing was shown to improve the student's ability to recognize and describe patterns. So with all of that in mind, here's what I'm going to try to figure out. Will writing in an online mathematics journal improve the problem-solving ability of 7th grade math students at Anthony Wayne Junior High? The design of this study is an action research. The purpose of action research is to assess the effectiveness of online math journals, specifically in my classroom. I can't apply these results to any others because it doesn't include some of the more important aspects of other research. I'll use a pre and post test to try to establish a causal relationship between the journals and students' math skills. And students will write for 4 weeks. The participants are students at Anthony Wayne Junior High. The participants are the 18 students that are in my first period class. And I am the teacher and the researcher in this study. The instruments I'll use will include a 3-part problem-solving assessment. The 3 tasks that make up this assessment are taken from the Mathematics Assessment Resource Service. This is a group that includes the Shell Center for Education and then also universities in England and the United States. They've come together to try to come up with good tasks to measure students' understanding of math. The 3 questions that are on the assessment were chosen because, and this is taken right from the MARS, rich and less structured tasks requiring strategic problem-solving skills. So less about the content itself and more about the skills of problem-solving that students need to solve these problems. The procedure for this study, I will give the pretest, and then the following day, students began journaling. They wrote in the journal for 5 to 10 minutes for every day for 4 weeks. And then after that 4 weeks was up, they took the post-test. The limitations in this study are student effort. So if a student doesn't finish one of the problems in class, the student's going to need to finish that outside of class. So if the students are not likely to do homework in general, then this would be an issue. Another issue would be the small sample size involved. There's only 18 students in this class. It was a non-random selection, so because I had to do everything in one class period, I just had to choose those 18 students. Students will be somewhat familiar with the test, the pre and the post test, because there's only 4 weeks in between. And then there's no measures in this study, at least, to show that any improvements in problem solving in those 4 weeks continue later on. So I don't know if those are long-lasting gains, any of the gains that may be made. I'm currently in the middle of the journal writing phase, so I don't have any results right now to post. Those will be coming in shortly. And then I listed out the references that I used in order to do my own research and then to help me formulate how I was going to do the journals in my classroom. Thank you.